The sun was setting behind the city when I noticed the first signs of change in my wife, Maria. She was quieter than usual, her phone suddenly becoming an extension of her hand, her smiles no longer reaching her eyes. For weeks, I dismissed my instincts, telling myself that marriage goes through phases, that maybe she was stressed with work, that maybe I was overthinking. But deep down, a voice inside me whispered a crueler truth. Something was wrong. One Friday evening, Maria told me she was going shopping with her friend Hannah. The story sounded rehearsed, her tone a little too casual, and when I asked if she wanted me to drive her, she refused, something she had never done before. That night, she came home later than expected, flushed, with a faint scent of cologne on her clothes that wasn't mine. I couldn't ignore it any longer. The next weekend, she told me she had to attend a work brunch at the safari park on the outskirts of the city. The excuse was laughable. Maria hated animals, hated long drives, and never once in our 10 years of marriage suggested spending a day at the safari park. That was my breaking point. I decided to follow her. I parked a few cars behind her at the entrance, staying far enough away not to be noticed. I watched as she stepped out of her car in a flowing summer dress, her hair done up in a way she never did for me anymore. And then I saw him, a tall man in a leather jacket, waiting for her near the ticket booth. He smiled, she laughed, and in that instant, I felt my entire world collapse. They kissed like teenagers, oblivious to the crowd around them. The pain was sharp, but I didn't storm forward. Not yet. Instead, I bought a ticket and followed them inside. Watching them together was like watching a twisted version of my marriage replayed in front of strangers. They walked hand in hand past the lion enclosures, whispering, giggling, stealing kisses when they thought no one was watching. At one point, they sat on a bench near the giraffes, Maria resting her head on his shoulder, the same way she used to rest on mine. I snapped photos. My hands were shaking, but I kept going, each click of the camera burning into my heart. Finally, I confronted them, near the safari cafe, where families sat eating ice cream and kids begged for souvenirs. I walked up to Maria and her lover, her face drained of color when she saw me. "Having fun at your work brunch?" I asked, holding up my phone with the pictures displayed. The man stiffened, his arms sliding away from her, as if contact with her might now burn him. "David, This isn't what it looks like," she stammered, her voice trembling. I laughed bitterly. "No, Maria, it's exactly what it looks like. You're here with your lover, in broad daylight, in a place where children come to see animals. Do you have any idea how humiliating this is?" People had begun to notice. A small crowd gathered, whispering, pointing. Maria's lover muttered something about leaving, but I blocked his way. "Don't worry," I told him coldly. "I'm not here to fight you. I just want the truth laid bare." Turning back to Maria, I asked, How long have you been sneaking around?" Her silence was louder than any admission. Tears welled in her eyes, but I felt no sympathy. "You could have ended this marriage like an adult. Instead, you chose to betray me like a coward. And here, I raised my voice, gesturing to people watching. Here's the proof of who you really are." Maria covered her face, sobbing, while her lover slunk away, too ashamed to stay. I didn't follow him. He wasn't my problem. My problem was a woman who had vowed to love me and instead turned our life into a lie. That night, I packed her bags and left them by the door. I didn't scream, didn't beg for an explanation. I had seen enough. When she tried to speak, I stopped her with a simple sentence. "Maria, our marriage died the moment you chose him over us." The divorce was swift. I presented the photos to my lawyer, and Maria didn't fight. Maybe guilt consumed her, maybe shame, maybe both. As for me, the pain eventually gave way to something else. Clarity. I realized betrayal doesn't define me. It defines the one who commits it. And though the safari park will always be a scar in my memory, it also became the place where I finally saw the truth with my own eyes, where I stopped living in denial and started reclaiming my life. Because sometimes the most shocking truths are the ones we've known all along. We just need to catch them in the open to finally believe them. The morning after I threw Maria out, the silence in the house felt heavier than anything I had ever experienced. No sound of her making coffee. No perfume lingering in the hallway. No half-hearted kiss before she left for work. Just emptiness. Part of me expected her to come back, begging, but she didn't. Instead, 3 days later, she showed up at my office. Her eyes were red, her hair messy, and she looked nothing like the woman I had once loved. She asked if we could talk. Against my better judgment, I agreed. We sat in a corner booth of a quiet cafe, the same one where we used to spend Sunday mornings. "David," she began softly, her voice breaking, "I made a mistake. I don't even know how it happened. He made me feel alive in ways I thought I'd lost. But I swear it didn't mean I stopped loving you." I stared at her, my hands folded on the table. "You didn't make a mistake, Maria. Mistakes happen once. This was a choice. A deliberate, repeated betrayal." Tears rolled down her cheeks. "I was lonely, David. You were always busy with work. I felt invisible." Her words cut because they weren't entirely untrue. I had been busy. I had buried myself in work to build a future for us. But betrayal was not the answer. So your solution was to sneak around, to meet him in a safari park of all places, in front of children, in front of families? You could have ended this marriage with honesty, but instead you chose deception. She reached for my hand, but I pulled away. For the first time, I didn't feel love for her. I felt pity. "Maria," I said firmly, "you didn't just destroy our marriage. You destroyed the respect I had for you. And without respect, there's nothing left." She sobbed quietly, realizing there was no way back. I thought the story would die quietly, but I was wrong. Someone at the safari park had recorded part of my confrontation on their phone. Within days, the video circulated in our community. The title was brutal. "Wife caught cheating in safari park. Husband confronts her in public." Neighbors whispered. Friends avoided us. Maria became a ghost of her former self. Her reputation torn apart. She lost friends, and eventually, her job. Meanwhile, I was painted as a man who had suffered betrayal, but stood his ground. It was surreal watching people pick sides in my marriage. Some pitted her, most pitted me. But for once, I didn't care what others thought. I cared only about finally being free of the lies. The divorce finalized within months. I kept the house. She moved into a small apartment across town. I never saw her lover again. Rumors said he left her shortly after everything blew up. Maybe he never loved her. Maybe he just wanted a thrill. I began rebuilding. Therapy helped, but so did simple things. Jogging in the mornings, picking up hobbies I'd abandoned, reconnecting with friends who had slowly drifted away while I was consumed by my marriage. It wasn't easy. Nights were the hardest. Lying in bed alone, replaying the images of her laughing in another man's arms. But as time passed, the pain dulled, replaced by a quiet strength I hadn't known I had. One evening, standing at the edge of that same safari park months later, I realized something important. The place that had once symbolized betrayal now symbolized truth. It was where the mask had finally fallen, where denial ended and clarity began. Maria's betrayal had shattered me, but it also set me free.